Hi, my name is Hitchcock. I am a presenter associated with Sidar. I present a number of their programs, and one of the ones we've got coming up is what we call high-performing boards. High-performing boards is aimed at really answering the question for directors, what do we do in the boardroom? Because very often directors have an idea of what it means to be a director, or they end up being a director by default. Because they're either the shareholder in the business or they've been promoted through a business. And high-performing boards is really about focusing on the value that boards should be unlocking in their companies. It does touch on the different roles in companies of shareholders, directors and managers, but focuses on what we would call board methodology. And the Sirdar board methodology is a very robust methodology that gives clear indication and clear advice, clear direction in what should be happening at board meetings over a period of time. Every board meeting isn't a standalone event, but it's part of a whole calendar, part of a whole process, and that process is about directing the company, leading it forward into the future, understanding in the decision making what does it leave behind, but also understanding that it's not just about ticking the boxes from a legal point of view, but more importantly about making sure that everybody in the business performs up to expectations, is accountable for their performance, and those are some of the key areas we touch on at the high-performing boards. Obviously it's targeted at directors, but in the legal framework for directors is basically people in decision-making positions in business. Many people in business don't realize that they're businesses, don't realize that they actually carry liability along with directors because they're making decisions. So anybody who is in a substantial position in a senior level business would benefit from the high-performing boards program. It is also designed for people who are looking to become directors, either executive directors, so they're the next in line for a directorship position, or they've been approached, as well as for people who are looking to get involved in non-executive directorships. Because as a role in business, directorship is very distinct from management, and so again, as I said, people often end up there by default. And so it's giving them the handles of what their perspective should be, some skills, some tools, and some specific things that they could be doing to prepare themselves to be most effective in their positions as directors. The first thing you'll be able to see very clearly is the distinction of what a board should be doing. And many people who run companies, who started companies, and would possibly be calling meetings they're having board meetings, but they're probably not running a governance process or a governance methodology. Those meetings are probably exco meetings, operational meetings, and ticking the box compliance meetings. Instead of saying what should actually be addressed at governance level or at oversight level in a business. So those people will get a much clearer picture of what being a director is actually all about. We often see people's awareness rise. Often they go, aha, now I understand. They'll also, if they're considering implementing a board, they will start to see the value that a board actually adds to a company. And especially if they are both the shareholder and the manager, so the founder of the business, often who's the MD or CEO, when they are brutally honest with themselves, they often realize, at the same time they realize that they should be making some changes, that they can do whatever they want because they're not being held accountable by anybody. And that's effectively what a board does, is it holds the MD accountable. It helps them take off their shareholder's hat and put the CEO MD hat on and to be held to account, and that drives the performance of the business. And so the ceiling directors of that profile get to often as well, I'm successful, I've been doing it, but I can't seem to move forward. And often, if they're honest with themselves, it's because actually they do it their own way. They continue doing what they're doing, and they're going to continue getting the same result. To break into that next level does require a higher level of governance in companies, and that's where a board is instrumental. The emphasis of Sidar is to actually get into the boardroom. There's a fair amount of training on what it means to be a director. Directors can find out, they can Google directorship online. There's a number of different programs that tend to take either an academic approach or an approach that is more appropriate to large listed companies as opposed to smaller growing companies. There is very little out there that talks to the growing company director, the person who needs to move from doing it themselves, doing it with a team of close associates or friends who are in the business, and actually put in place a formal board structure. So it's one of the few programs that actually talks to those people. It's very practical, and it revolves around what we term a board or governance methodology. Somewhere between the externally imposed laws and codes and all of the external things, and on the other side, the practices in the business, is the need to think through how we in this company are going to do this thing called governance. And that's what we would call a board methodology or a governance methodology. And Sidar has developed that for private companies. And we emphasize that there are certain things that need to be in place very clearly. We can provide guidance on it, but it does also need to be customized for each and every company because it looks different in every company. And directors looking at all the externally imposed things often get overwhelmed. They're also wrapped up in what goes on the day-to-day basis, and so this program gives them a slice of what this methodology looks like. In one day, we cover the whole methodology at a fairly high level, and there's an opportunity to discuss and engage around the specific challenges in implementing it, and from there, growing into a methodology looking forward.